Okay, so welcome to the second approach, if you're doing it in the correct order. First one was behaviourist, classical and operant. This one would come under the behaviourist approach as well, but it gets called the learning approach in the sense that it goes slightly further. And you need to know that they are similar, but you also need to know how and why they differ, and hopefully I can explain that to you. So we are doing what's called the social learning theory. SLT, you'll see it called forevermore now, SLT. Okay, so you're going to have an understanding of what the social learning theory is. You'll understand how social learning theory investigates understanding human behaviour and the idea of the mediational processes. Okay, so as we said with any of these, you need the assumptions first of all. Having just done a revision session with this, if you're year 13s, you want 2 to 4 at least assumptions and be able to know what each one of them are. So the social learning theory. Bandura is your big person here. If in behaviorists we had Pavlov and Skinner, Albert Bandura is the person behind the social learning theory. You may have heard of his Bobo doll experiment, very famous. If you haven't, again, go and look it up, watch it. You will learn about it in the future. He agreed with behaviourists that much of the behaviour is learned from experience. However, his social learning theory proposed a different way in which humans learn. We observe and imitate within the social context. So where the big bits are different is classical and operant conditioning happen to you, happens to the dog, happens to the mouse, the rat, the pigeon, whatever is getting electrocuted or getting a reward. You in school, you're getting a merit or a sanction or a detention. They are happening to you. What social learning theory is saying is that we can have it indirectly, which means that we watch it happen to somebody else. The way I always explain this really quickly before we move on is regarding football and in an all boys school, if something happens on the weekend big, you'll see all the boys do it. Now they haven't learnt that through their own experience, they've learnt that by watching it. So if a certain goal celebration or something like that is done on a Saturday, then before you know it, on Monday football, all the boys are doing that, and you may laugh and think about the ones that you've had over the years. The secondary one is what happens punishment-wise to those. So I used to use Suarez. We haven't really updated it recently. You'd get the odd player elbowing, or if a football player does some really aggressive behaviour, does something out of the ordinary, what we need from a social learning point of view is that person gets punished. We need to see that football player get a 3-match ban, get fined, get something like that, because if they don't get punished, social learning theory would state that those boys that watch it are then going to go out on a Monday, come to a PE lesson, and be violent and do whatever it is. So that's how you want to think about it, is we're learning through watching the consequences of other people, not just what happens to us. And that's this idea of directly or indirectly. Okay, vicarious reinforcement. Indirect learning takes place when an individual observes the behaviours of others. The learner may imitate, which is copy this behaviour, but only occurs if the behaviour is seen to be rewarded. And that's what I was just talking about, rather than punished, vicarious reinforcement. So when we watch our role models, somebody we want to learn from, our older brothers, our older sisters, parents, people on TV, boys in school, teachers, whoever your role models, who you're imitating might be, we need to see them get vicarious reinforcement, positives. One of the reasons why celebrities are so kind of loved and looked at is because they have a lot of these things that people want. They're getting rewarded by money, by having the opposite sex, absolutely love them, and by having fame and anything they want, and blah blah blah. So they're obviously getting vicarious reinforcement. So therefore, I'm going to imitate what Tom Hardy does, or Jamie Oliver, or something like that. So the learner observes a behaviour, but most importantly, the consequence of that behaviour. So if somebody we are watching has a negative reinforcement, something negative, punishment happens to them, then we're less likely to copy them. All right, so you just understand that balance of indirectly, vicarious reinforcement. This word vicarious is a key term for you. Again, to put it in some context for you, you sometimes get older dads. If a dad is, really pushing a boy into football or rugby or cricket and forcing that boy into it and making him do it when he doesn't want to do it, people would say, "Oh, look, you're just trying to live vicariously through your kid," which means you're trying to live, your life through the life of your child, and that's a term that comes up. Okay, this bit you just need to understand what the process is, how it works at each stage, and be able to apply it basically if there is an apply question. The role of the mediational process. Social learning theory is known as the bridge between learning theory and the cognitive approach, which we'll come to, as it focuses on mental factors that are involved in learning. So if again we compare it to behaviour really quickly, the behaviourists are just simple. Did you get reward? Did you get punishment? If you got a reward, you're going to do it again. If you get punished, you won't do it again. This is saying that there's a little bit more to it. There's a little bit more brain power, brain focus, use of your brain to do it, free will, involved in the learning. The mental factors mediate, intervene in the learning process to determine whether a new response has been acquired. And I'll try and explain this to you. Here it is, so there's 4 of them. Attention, the extent to which we notice certain behaviours. Retention, I'll go back over these in a second. How well the behaviour is remembered. Motor reproduction, the ability of the observer to perform the behaviour. And motivation, the will to perform the behaviour. So if we take an example here of, I'm trying to keep it out of sport, but I'll do it in sport, basketball. Now, if I want to be a basketball player, and I want to learn, and I'm really interested, then my attention is going to spot basketball players. If I am not interested in basketball, then I am not going to get past stage 1 because I don't notice the behaviours that they're doing. So let's say I am interested, I've paid attention to that basketball player in a game, blah, 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 in life, and I have noticed his certain behaviours. Fine. Then I move on to zone 2. This is retention, how well you remember this behaviour. So again, I might drop off, I saw it, I can't remember it now. I can't remember how he did it from left hand to right hand, or what shot it was, or something like that. It's gone, I haven't got past zone 2. But let's say I have, I've remembered it. Now I'm actually going to move on to the 3rd stage, which is, can I actually repeat that behaviour? Have I got the motor reproduction? Have I got the ability? Have I got the hands? Have I got the arms? Have I got the all the possible parts that I need to perform that behaviour? Now in sport it's really easy to say it. In some of the other contexts, and I might take you through another one in a minute, it's a bit harder to understand that. But do you have the brain power, the mental capacity, the ability, whatever it is, to actually perform what you have watched and what you've remembered? And then the last stage, the 4th stage, will the will to perform, the motivation for that, and will I get rewarded or punished? So the understanding of, if it's I'm trying to think, if it's a slam dunk in gym 1 and Mr. James is in there, and you're going to hang from the bar because that's what you've seen, hang from the hoop because that's what you've seen as the behaviour, you may not want to be motivated to do that because Mr. James would go nuts at you and you would be punished. So the motivation there might drop off. Outside in another park where there's people watching and it doesn't matter and there's no teachers and it's okay, and you do this slam dunk and hang on the hoop and everyone goes, "Oh, well done, fantastic, oh, you're awesome, high five," then obviously that means it's going to be rewarded, therefore your motivation is going to be high. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. I'm sure in class, either with me or whoever your teacher is, we can go through a bit more of understanding that you need these 4 processes for it to happen. The last part of this is identification. Okay, and it's just a kind of separate chapter. People, especially children, are more likely to imitate the behaviour of people with whom they identify, called role models. This process is called modelling. So we model ourselves on other people. We watch somebody on TV, or we watch somebody somewhere and we suddenly go and dress like them, or we copy their words, we copy their signs, we copy what they say, what they do, their music, all of these things, because we're modelling ourselves on our role models, and hopefully understand the concept of role models and maybe even who yours are. A person becomes a role model if they're seen to possess similar characteristics to the observer, are attractive and have high status. So we're not going to have role models that are nothing like us. We need role models that we feel, oh, we can get there. Yeah, maybe I can be like that person. I'm already a bit like that person. Or he's, you know, he's a bit like me. He's whatever it is. Role models may be may not be physically present in the environment, for example, in the media, and celebrities' influences on our behaviour. Yeah, that makes sense. So you identify with the role model. It can't be someone completely dissimilar to you. It has to be somebody that you feel you can identify with, and then obviously that's going to lead to that process. The full process is I'm now going to pay attention to him. I'm going to remember it. I'm going to be motivated. Blah blah blah. Hopefully that makes sense. Next lesson, AO3.